Welcome to everybody to today's episode of Move Crush Count. I'm your host, Scott Joseph. Today's episode is brought to you by J&L Marketing, the digital and direct marketing agency that helps you outsmart your competition so you don't have to outspend them. It's their innovative approach that allows J&L and help their clients move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. I want you to make sure to visit their website at jandlmarketing.com so they can help you outsmart your toughest competitors. I'm excited to introduce our next guest, Swire Ho. He's originally from Hong Kong, and Swire moved to LA in '96 and has since become an extremely successful entrepreneur in the entertainment industry. With his expertise in sound engineering, he founded Hellman Production, and he did that in 2003. His business acumen, his experience led him to successfully sell that company in 2013. And I want to talk to him a little bit about that because not everybody's smart enough. Sometimes those companies just disappear. It's great to see that you cashed out on that. And today, Swire's an expert in business networking and how to build a referral-based business. So his insights and his strategies for developing and maintaining strong business relationships, in my opinion, are invaluable to anyone that wants to grow their client base and improve their retention program. Welcome, Swire Ho, to Move Crush Count.
Thank you so much for having me on today, Scott.
Love it. I'm excited to have you on here for a couple of reasons. One, I am big on referral-based marketing programs, client retention, but also always have a lot of respect for someone that starts a company and sees it all the way through, sells it, and then starts on their next journey. So let's dive right in. All right. Let's get. I don't want to. I feel like that was a pretty good intro in the sense that got a little bit of your background, but I want to hear more about what inspired you to become. Where would your passion come from in terms of being an entrepreneur?
Well, actually, going all the way back to the beginning in 2003, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I was kind of forced to become one because on the day of my honeymoon, I found out that the company that I worked for at the time went on a business. So now I'm married, I have no job. So I decided to, take on some of the tasks that I was working on at the previous company and made Hellman Production, which we were in the CD and DVD replication business. So at that time, it was a good place to be.
Tell me, early on, let's go back to that back when Hellman and even the current company that you're with now, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? I think a lot of people that are thinking about being an entrepreneur, sometimes they see that and they think, oh, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to have control. I'll have a better work-life balance and all these things. But they don't always anticipate a lot of the big challenges. What were some of the big challenges that you faced early on, and how did you overcome them?
Well, basically everything. That means you don't know anything at all. When you work for someone, it's easy. You have a defined description. You just do this and don't mess up, then you have a job. But in entrepreneurship, I didn't know that I have to do accounting. I didn't know that I have to do a website. I didn't even know how to register my name legally as a company. So I have to learn it along the way, and obviously made a lot of mistakes. So expect to run into problems, and then don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, and that's a big key. I think a lot of people feel like they have to do things on their own and don't realize that there are so many people out there that are willing to really guide you and help you through a lot of the, I guess, issues, problems. Most people have been there and done that. A lot of running a business. I say sales is sales, business is business, and a lot of the same challenges that early entrepreneur might face. Just about every business has faced the same ones and gotten through it. So why go through that same learning curve? Shorten it.
Yeah, I think with technology, actually nowadays, if you start a business, I think it's somewhat easier because the amount of information are more available than in 2003. If I want to learn something, we have internet, right? But then the amount of education, for example, listen to your podcast, Scott, every time that you learn something new, you learn something different, then you can actually save 3 to 5 years, I would say, sometime, by learning the right concept. Maybe not walking into that pothole. So it would save you a lot of headaches. Nowadays, gathering yourself with the right information. I think, entrepreneurs are always curious. They're always willing to learn. So when the time that you think you have learned everything, then that's the time you kind of get into trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk a little bit about some of the principles and strategies. You're known as an expert networker. You've built good relationships. Talk to me about the strategies that you've used to network effectively.
That's a great question. I belong to two different chamber of commerce. I am the ambassador for the LA area chamber of commerce, and also they named me the ambassador of the year in 2018. So with the title and not the background to tell you, I love networking, and there are so many events virtually and in person nowadays that you can go to.
Yeah.
You could easily overwhelm yourself. But the question that I get people ask is, what meeting should I go to? Like, what is the one meeting that I have to attend to get business? But sorry to spoil the fun. You're not going to networking to sell your product. You're actually going to networking meeting to introduce yourself, to learn more about what others can do. And ultimately, if you're smart, you build your power partners, which in turn, people are on the lookout for you. So when there's actually an opportunity that is, related to your business, they will send it to your way. And that's how my approach is for business networking.
All right. So you brought up power partner. Talk to me about what a power partner is and how it can help someone accelerate the growth of their business.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I'm in a promotional product business. So what my power partner will be naturally will be event planner, because they plan events, they will have people exhibit, then they need promotional product. My power partner will also be graphic designer, because they design logos, we execute them. Sometimes it will be a marketing consultant. So these are people who help mutual clients, but don't have direct competition as you do. So these are your power partners.
Okay. And then what do you think are what would you say when you're building these relationships and you're networking? And I want to go back to some of the events that you talked about. But before I do, what do you think are some of the most important qualities when you're building strong business relationships? What do you look for,
Well,
I guess, in a person?
people have to like you. If you are, it's not. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the title of the person is. Sometimes I will meet someone who I know would never do business. It's just not the right title, not in the industry. But we don't think like, what about their spouses? What about their friends? What are their inner circle? Maybe those are the client base that you're dying to get to. But without an introduction, sometimes it's hard to pick into a certain business community, right? So
Yep.
don't discount that person if they don't have the title that you're looking for. They could well be not a power partner, but a referral person for you in Chamber of Commerce. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I don't count. How many promotional product company or person can you name, Scott?
How many? Repeat that question.
How many promotional product company or person that you know that you can name right now?
I know of one guy and the only reason I can name him, all right, the only reason I can name him is because literally we had a conversation 4 weeks ago on LinkedIn, and we talked on the phone briefly. Other than that, none.
Yeah, even people can name a doctor. Like they will have their own doctor you can name, and all the TV doctors skip. People cannot name 5 doctors. What if within your networking circle you become known as the person for your industry? So every time that you go to the LA Chamber, for example, when the word promotional product comes up, people talk about Swire. You got to talk to Swire, or you got to talk to so and so. He's
Right.
the expert in the field. How would that build to your network and then the referral, and you're known as the person in the circle, as the person who is an expert and a trusted advisor, in the field? So that's always the angle I am trying to look at. It's not how much I could sell to that person right away. It's how I can build the relationship, and eventually when we become acquaintance, he or she might be able to willing to say, so how can I help you? And that's this is the time that I know I'm doing something right.
And to me, I feel like this is a growing trend, and it's always been effective, but I feel like even more so today than say 15, 20 years ago. And the reason I say that is, let me give you an example. I'm on a lot of the audio apps, whether it's let's just say Clubhouse for one. I can honestly say that in the last 2 years, I have probably built not only as strong, but probably more in terms of numbers, quality relationships, real relationships with people on these audio apps than anything else. And to your point, I'm not on those stages selling anything. I mean, there's no one wants to hear me get up there and make a pitch. It's all about helping each other, right? And it naturally happens, I guess, when you're giving your opinion or someone ask your advice on something or your opinion on something and you give it. If it's good, all right, you're going to build credibility with yourself, some authority with yourself, but also there becomes this connection in, you're helping people behind the scenes, whether it's some on the direct messaging part or anything like that. And to your point, I've never approached those or anything like that, whether it's the mastermind stuff we do to sell anybody. It's just always been, what can I give? And it tends to come back.
Sometimes it's scary because my wife would see me go on to networking event. Did you close any deals today? And I remember I always tell, no, not today. But why do you go to all the networking meeting? I think that's a valid question. And then for entrepreneurs, we like to measure our return on investment. If I spend time here, I should able to close this amount of sale. It's a tricky question to answer, but if you are able to build your expertise among a group of people. Give me another example. It's not really related to any business networking. I have 2 kids. So throughout the year, I go to different volunteer experience. I go to the soccer game. I not being my sales boy at all. Don't want to talk about business, but I get to know people over there. And then they actually have their day job, as
Right.
marketing executive. I actually end up getting business just by showing up at soccer games and volunteer experience. So those are the times that you got to turn on, not in your sales mode, but to networking, to actually meet those people. They're human being, or they could be the executive in the company that you're dying to get in.
And we're kind of touching on this a little bit now. I think I'm getting a feel for what your sales and marketing approach is, but that was my next question is, what is your sales and marketing approach? I mean, all right, so we're talking about your networking here. Is it that much different or?
I think since the pandemic, I actually have changed drastically because I couldn't go to in-person networking for maybe until like beginning of this year. It's just not available. But like yourself, Scott, I also have my own podcast. I'm actually turning my podcast and my guest podcasting experience into my networking event. So you and I are in different state, Scott. Like we're connecting together, I think, via pot match, I think. And then
Yes.
we, after this conversation, you guarantee that I will be staying in touch and learn more about what you're trying to do. And I was able to do a lot of these conversations virtually, during the pandemic. So now I'm actually broadened my networking horizon, beyond my local area.
We need things, Swire. So, we'll definitely be in contact after and for those of you, Swire just mentioned that he's got a podcast. I'd love for you to get a chance to download it and catch some of his episodes. I've got, if you're watching at the bottom of the screen right now, it's called the Small Business Show Podcast. So please give that a visit, download some episodes and subscribe to him, subscribe to his show. Especially if you like what you're hearing today. So we'll give you a little plug there and hopefully help you out. And so right now we're streaming for those that will be downloading this from whatever platform you get your podcast. We're originally recording this as a live stream over on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And so we do have people out there. If you've got any questions or anything like that, fire them up here. I'll try to get to them if we can. If not, we'll get back to you after the episode on whatever social channel that you came through on. How would you advise someone? Let's get specific on building a referral-based business system. How would you advise someone to build that out?
what you have to map out, I would say start from your power partner. So definitely you know that, for example, use a realtor is more straightforward, right? When you sell houses, you need escrow services, you need to get a loan, right? You need maybe interior design or even a moving company. So if you're either one of those job title, the others can actually be your power partner because it's all big team, right? Buying houses is a big purchase. Or when you, let's say you are business formation attorney, then you can actually be power partner with someone designing a website or maybe a business coach. Draw down those names. I would say at least put down 3 to 5, of your power partners. And then that will actually answer a lot of your question. What kind of meeting should I go to? You know, Depending on what you have wrote down, think about what these people or what association or what trade shows would these people go to, and that's where you want to go and meet them.
It's funny you say that because I think a lot of people, when they think about referrals, they think about it in one way of getting them only. And that is have my sales team ask their clients for a referral, right? I think, and that's such a limited approach because I am a big believer in if there's anything worthwhile doing, you want to have multiple streams of no different than you want multiples potentially once you get a business established, you want multiple streams of income eventually as you progress through life. In your business, you want multiple streams of leads. And let's just take, and then I think you can break it down further, right? In other words, now if we're going to say referrals is one of those streams, I also want multiple streams of referrals. So the networking and the different associations. I know I've got a good friend who would get referred, set up incredible relationships with a lot of local charities. And anytime that it was a high ticket item vehicle, anytime that someone would buy a car, they would donate to the charity. And then what would ended up happening is these charities were just bombarding the dealership with all kinds of leads because he had set those charities, those relationships all over town. And so that would be another example. It's not exactly with what you're saying, but I feel like it's along the same lines of finding groups and associations, forming strong relationships with them, and setting up that pathway. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I really like the strategy. So one way, obviously, is we could utilize and build a relationship with our partner. And remember, once it goes both ways. So you have to give some time, and then you should expect at some point, you receive some time. Don't always get and never put in the work. And then people see that, and then you might wonder where my partner gone. And the other way, I think we should know about is I always talk to client, you spend a lot of money bringing in client. You do like your, funnel selling, you put a lot of money in Google ads, whatever revenue that you bring in the customer. But once they purchase from you, what have you done to retain them? A lot of time, like I get a blank stare, or maybe they really require, I don't spend any money or time to retain my client. I said, why not? If they already purchased from you, they research and they actually like you to give you money, right? To buy your product or services. You spend $0 retaining your client. What if the past 2 years you could keep all your past clients? Let's say you're not getting new clients because of the economy that we're in. Do you think you do pretty well if you're able to keep all your clients?
Well, you wouldn't go backwards.
Yeah.
But to your point, gosh, there's so many businesses that don't understand this. So I'll give you an example. I've got a local dry cleaner. And prior to COVID, they were phenomenal. The level of service, the quality of the dry cleaning, the whole thing. During COVID, I would imagine that business suffered a little bit because we're all staying at home. We're wearing sweatpants, t-shirts, whatever, and not needing to, have as many formal, not wearing our nicer stuff as often, right? And so it's fine. Continue to stay in business or continue to give them business. And within a year or two here, these last couple of years, I noticed the level or the quality, certain things weren't getting returned on time. A lot of shortcuts in what they used to provide in the service and the quality of the work. And we would bring it up over and over and over again, but nothing changed. So eventually we had to switch to another company. Now, we used to give this company, I would have to say, there's no way we were not in the top 2% of their clients in terms of dry cleaning. With the exception unless they have some type of contract with some big, apartment or condo building or something. We've not heard one word from them since, not one. And to your point, most small businesses don't take the time to recognize what's going on in their clients' lives in terms of, are they still business with us? And if they're not, why? Did they move? Did they just forget about us, or did we do something wrong? But man, that's a client retention, to your point. That's, if you want to grow fast, you cannot do it without that.
Yeah, I like the example, Scott. Let me give you 2 examples, right? The first one, say business will say, no, we don't have any budget, right? We're smaller company, right? As a dry cleaner, they're smaller, so we cannot afford, luxury gifts, right? For example, you have to give. But what if you call them, right, all over the phone after you finish your service with them, for example, and ask, if in your case, Scott, are you happy with everything that we have done for you? Are there any things that you wish that we change so that we could keep you as a loyal customer? For example, Scott, you mentioned that there are certain things that you are wanted to see a change, right?
Right.
What if it's within your ability? I just wish that the doorbell don't ring so loud when I walked in. Fix right away. And there are so many times that we are calling much bigger company nowadays that they have a specific department just to listen to you complain. Whatever you say, they will reverse it so well. But you know that at the back end, they're never going to change. I deal with companies, I call companies like that all the time, every day. But what if some complaints or some suggestion, and you're seeing the changes the next time you walk in? Then think about how much loyalty the company will build on Scott if the little things that he mentioned get changed the next time he's there. So that's the first part, right? There's actually no cost. You just ask the client. If they say that you should change something that you can do, change it.
That's right.
As easy as that. The other way is, what if you have a little bit of budget and that, Scott will see his friends, maybe he's go to his gym, and people say, where do you do your dry cleaning? Then you got to maybe give them something tangible, or in nowadays, maybe ask Scott to do a video testimonial. Then you could put it on your website. You could put it on your social media feed. So you can actually do that and ask the client to become your ambassador. While you don't really have to pay them. If Scott is happy enough, I'm sure that he's nice enough for a guy that you will say or leave a feedback right on your Google review. So, these are some of the strategies that could be easily implemented and to grow your referral business.
Yeah. And so that's a great point, because for one, you're not going to get, the better you satisfy and create a better client experience, the more referrals you're going to get. And I want to go back to the point you made. You had mentioned, don't lose sight of the fact that that's a two-way relationship. You want to give referrals as much as you're getting. And quite honestly, most people will find the more referrals they give, the more they'll get in return. At least that's been my experience. I think people feel that inner pressure to want to help you back, and give back. So, and I'm not saying that's the reason you do it, but it is nice, I guess, when it happens. Let me ask you, let's say there's, a lot of small businesses that are listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as sophisticated, all of them, with their data management. Maybe they don't know everyone's, they're not tracking their client retention. They might have some client contact information and know how many clients they're doing business with. And obviously they know their sales, and their net and their expenses. But what advice would you give? I guess for a company that's not as sophisticated and maybe doesn't have the setup to analyze and get the right insights from their data, how should they be measuring, success or not when it comes to client retention?
Well, I would say if you are in business or do you keep any amount of data, then you should probably find out it, who your top 10 clients are. Maybe in the past year or in your last cycle, whatever that makes sense to you data wise. Who and what company gave you the most business. What that data can tell you is, it's what type the title are are they in? What kind of business are they in? Why? And answer honestly, why did they buy from you? And if you don't know, you can actually call them, because at their top 10 client, really ask them, you have many choices or options. Why do you decide you want to work with us? If more than two clients say the same thing, you definitely got to pay attention. And what you want to do afterwards too, with maybe social media, or maybe you doing grassroots direct door-to-door hang marketing. Think about, can you possibly double or find similarity, or people who have similar job titles there, or maybe you can solve a certain pain point for your top 10 client that you can actually go and find and double your top 10 client. So these are actually easy ways that you can do to double yourself without really gaining massive amount of clients.
Yeah, I love that you just said that, because I don't need to have this sophisticated database and reporting system. If I've got my revenue, I can say, where's that coming from? And the majority of the time, let's just do the 80-20 rule, right? A lot of time, 80% of that revenue is probably coming from 20% of the clients. So that list usually isn't that long. And you could come up with those people and focus. If all you did was focus in on those people and make sure you save those the 20% that's producing the 80%, would go a long way in terms of your growth, because it's very rare anybody's going to have 100%, retention. I've never met a business that has that. So, I think if you focus in on what's most important and prioritize that, and like you said, that's as simple as a phone call and checking in a lot of times. I just think that's great. Keeps you, it's a very focused way, and very personal, by the way, very personal one-to-one way of solving a very tough issue. I want to go back to the referral-based thing for a second. So we talked about associations. We talked a little bit about some of the charity stuff. What are some other pipelines of referrals do you think would be good for our audience?
Well, I'll stay on, our top 10 client. I actually would ask them, I have, a couple of clients who work for a larger company. So I know that definitely other department could buy what I sell. So I actually will ask my contact, do you happen to know a colleague, a friend, within the other department that could benefit from what we do? Would you mind to give us an introduction? You don't get that all the time, but sometimes they will actually connect me within the company. I remember I did a jacket order for a company in September. I asked that question. Now I'm doing 10 different jacket projects for the same larger company. So you can actually, do that if you're working for a big organization, or know that maybe let's say you're a psychotherapist, you help a client, to solve, their needs. So ask them, maybe they know friends or family who are going through a similar situation. And the key to success is you have to give them a couple of key points to kind of talk you up. So when you call that person, it's not a cold call now. They've been hearing what their colleague is saying, or friends are saying, so they actually been expecting you call. So it's a different. If I pass you on a lead, Scott, you call them, they might or might not know who you are. You have to do your whole introduction again. But what if you coach me to tell my friends what they should know about you before you call? Then it becomes a warm introduction. So think about a couple of things that you could teach your referral partner what to say about you.
A lot of our clients don't even know that we want referrals. I think as business owners, we assume that everyone would think that we want that. And of course we do, but how about on any piece of communication that you send, whether it's a email or even an invoice, and just to mention that, hey, we've been delighted. Your support means the world to us. If you have any friends or family that would be interested in, and so on, right? I think anytime there's points of communication with clients, I think that it opens up opportunities for new streams of referral leads. I've got a question. So, and I want to make sure that I pronounce it right? Garuda Promo, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's your current company. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, going from Hellman to Garuda Promo, I want to know what you decided, you know what? Those ideas and strategies, and we'll keep it focused on sales and marketing. Those ideas, I'm not bringing with me to the new company, to Garuda Promo. I'm leaving that back there. But then what were some of the things that you also brought forward and said, man, that crushed it. I'm definitely doing that in the new company. Because I've looked at your website. I mean, you've got some very large clients on Garuda Promo. So whatever you did from a sales and marketing standpoint, I mean, you're talking about national, worldwide brands that are buying from you. So clearly you've done something extremely well and did it the right way. So any small business that's listening to us, they need to pay attention to this. So what did you not bring forward, and what did you bring forward?
Well, the reason we make the change from CD and DVD to promotional product is along the way, when we did the CD back then, the musician, when they finish their album, they go on tour. They ask if we do t-shirts and merch for them. We didn't know what we're doing, but we said yes. So we got into that part of the business. Hindsight is 2020. So in 2013, a competitor in the LA area actually wanted to purchase us. So I think it was the perfect time, right, to let go of the CD, DVD part. But the promotional product business and then the branded merchandise space is always changing. I think it's fun. To answer your question, how are we able to connect with those big companies? I think networking, I would still really value networking in it, because a lot of time when we go to networking, if your title is CEO or if your title is chief something, we are all over you. But then we always, no one's will ever talk to a secretary or executive assistant, at the networking meeting. And when you hear sales expert talking about their strategies, how to go through the gatekeeper, how to talk past the secretary, my approach is I'm staying at the gate and talk to the gatekeeper, because I found from my experience that, although I think my service is valuable, the CEO's time is also very valuable. So who actually placed the order is actually the executive assistant and secretary. So it's my job really to make sure that the executive assistant like what we do. And then the first phone call they will call, because a lot of times the CEO will walk out from a meeting at maybe Friday afternoon. They will dump all this as the executive assistant, want to do it by next week, find something. So
that's right.
I actually become the first person they will call, panic. And then I build the trust on them by able to solve the problem, solving their pain point. So now I become some of the go-to person whenever they need product and service that we offer. So maybe think differently. So I think I might challenge and push a lot of buttons on what most people think about the selling strategy for a company.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately it's the owner, the president, the high-level manager that is doing the purchase. But to your point, they're probably not the one deciding where in terms of, at least on your product. So, because they're not the one that has to deal with getting it done. So, that's an interesting approach to it, and something I have not thought of, at least with what I'm doing on the agency world. To some extent, we have something similar, right? So if we're selling digital or direct marketing, we've got to work. It depends on the size of the organization. We could work with a president, a CEO, owner. But a lot of times, even if the marketing manager is not the decision maker, they're influencing it. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not developing strong relationships with those people, to your point, it's never going to happen, because a lot of times the executive that is making the call, at least with what we do, they're relying on that person to tell them, is it the right decision? So,
Yeah, adding on that, definitely make sure that if you are active on LinkedIn, I know you are, Scott. I'm also,
I am.
so to connect with your client on LinkedIn, people sometimes will be
Yep.
afraid, like if I put it on LinkedIn, people are going to steal my client, right? They know who I'm working with and they're going after the person. Give you an example. I work with a girl. She is the marketing and event coordinator for a company, I think 5 years ago. And then she actually switched jobs 7 times now. She's now the national event manager, and she
Mhm.
brought me along every time to switch company. And
Yeah.
she's now moved on with the past six, but I am still doing business with all six of them where she worked
That's
previously. So you can actually do that by connecting with someone. They brought you along, and you can actually growing your business that way organically.
that's a great point. Let me ask you, how do you measure, or how do you balance short-term versus long-term goals for your business? First off, do you think short or do you think long? And then how do you balance the two?
I like to set goals for myself, for something that I'm not able to do today, but I know that by working on something, by figuring out, maybe improving the process, eventually I can get there. But also I will have small goals that, maybe I have to talk to 10 clients every day. Maybe I have to finish this by the end of the
Right.
week. So I do keep short-term and long-term goals. And I think to encourage everyone listening out there, you should celebrate your smallest win. Because we always have self-inflict. We talk down to ourselves. Maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I really can't do that. Maybe I'm just not big enough for this dream jobs that I'm going for. Like we talk to ourselves that way, right? But by celebrating the small wins, even if I call the person 10 times, he's picking up today. And then that's a win that you can celebrate. So I think by
Yeah.
building on the small ones will set you up to hit your big goals.
It's so funny you say that, because the conversation we have with ourselves
It's
is the
not
one that
kind.
we have.
Yeah.
It's well, you're 100% right. It's not kind, and it's also the one we have probably the most frequently. And so we probably talk to ourselves. Some people, it's obvious. Like, people ask me all the time, who are you talking to? And I'm like, myself, because my lips must be moving with the subconsciously. But I beat myself up a ton. Um, yeah, and my wife is always correcting me. Why do you talk about yourself like that? And I'm always like, man, you dumbass, you this, you did. What are you doing? What a horrible decision. Whatever. I'm my worst critic, I feel like, and I'm sure I've got some out there that are bad, but I don't think that any is worse than me. And it's a horrible thing you can do, because your brain listens. Your brain listens, and as much as I want to, we want to empower ourselves. We want to have empowering beliefs. We don't want to have limiting beliefs. The more negativity that you put on yourself can create limiting beliefs without you even knowing that they're there.
Yeah. I think, another way too, like, because even if you try your best and you hit your dream goals, if you look at the internet, then you get depressed because obviously there's someone's going to be bigger and better than you are. But my question to everyone listening is, think about who define your success. Is it you? Is it your wife? Is it, someone in your industry who really define your success? So
That's
that you
right.
can answer another question. If Warren Buffett is defining success, so none of us are successful. We are like, no matter what we do. But if your definition of success, you're able to achieve, then you, my friend, are already successful. So really ask your question, who is defining your success?
We talked about this a little bit, but I want to go back to some of listening to client feedback. So we talked about it in terms of for client retention, but I want to talk about how you've used it in terms of improving your offerings to clients. So you kind of brought it up a couple times. You brought it up when we were discussing client retention and making those improvements. And when clients see those improvements, it goes a long way in terms of retention and loyalty. But you also brought it up indirectly when you were listening to your clients who were on tour saying, "Hey, we also need these things to sell," right? Uh, So that in my opinion, that is another example of listening to clients. But what's the role of client feedback in your business, and how do you use it to improve your either your product or your service?
People know that you listen. People can tell right away that someone is listening to them, because on you show it on your work. And
Yeah.
it's my job, and I think it's everyone's job. How can you make your company or your product and service irreplaceable? You can somehow do that by listening, because if you
Right.
know all your pain point from your client, whatever industry that you're in, and you're able to address those pain points, then even if it's just an economic downturn, the last company they will cut will be you, because you're able to solve the pain.
That's right.
If I'm able to solve the pain and really relate and listen to it, then you really making yourself and company irreplaceable.
Yeah. What are your all's future plans and goals? Talked a little bit about your goal setting, but what are some of them?
I always wanted to do more with less. It's not just how big we want to be. With my current lifestyle and using what I just said, how do you define my own success? Are we able to achieve those success? And I'm a big believer in routines and training. I love health and fitness.
Mhm.
So really do want to set goals for myself from time to time and to really work for it. And I think, one thing that people in books they don't talk about is when you hit a certain goal in fitness, in business, you have to let yourself rest a little bit. You can't just go and give you 100% every day. Maybe for a day or two, maybe for a week, you could do that. But people get burned out because they go hard all the time without
Right.
even plateau or rest for a little bit. So I think for me, it will be work-life balance. Can we achieve a goal? And to my age is, can we recover or even hand back a little to see what really going on, so you do before making your next move?
Yeah. All right. Great point. Is there anything you want to add that we have not talked about, especially as it relates to, building a referral-based business or client retention? Is there anything you want to share? Any success stories or?
Well, I think now is a good time, if you never have done business networking, to go out there, both in person and in virtual. There are so many meetings available. Maybe pick one or
Yeah.
two that you really think you can connect with. And then I'm actually a shy person. I don't really talk a lot. So by there, I would encourage, if you're in person, find two types of people. The first one is everyone is surrounding them. They're a superstar. You can actually walk up to this person and say, I'm new into this and I don't really know anyone in the room. Would you mind introduce me to a couple of people there, and then tell them a little bit, enough, just they could send you up some introduction. You'll be surprised what those people can do. And the second type of people I would ask you to talk to, are the people like kind of like me in the beginning. They hang out by the cafe table, maybe by the bar, pretend that they're drinking, but they're just trying to avoid conversation. Do make eye contact and strike up a conversation with them. So I think those will be the two type of people that I'll encourage everyone, maybe going back there out for networking, to try.
I don't have the exact percentage on top of my head, but I brought this up in the intro. I was very impressed that your first company, because not everybody starts a company and has the exit plan mapped out when they're starting it. And I'm not saying you did have that, but as a first-time entrepreneur, talk us a little bit through that process, because we do have a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners listening to the show who may have never thought. Some people just think and just retire and never sell that asset, and experience that. To me, that's a great part of your story. So can you just walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think you have to be humble and always know that. I think myself included, like, you have to find people who are way better than you out there, and then do whatever that you can to have them work with you or for you. So if
Yeah.
you do that on all the aspect around your company, then you'll be more successful, because you're not in this by yourself. And
Right.
there are a lot of people actually willing to mentor people who are just started out, one thing I would encourage everyone to check out is called SCORE Counseling. It's SCORE counseling. So these are actually run by volunteers. It's a government program that a marketing professional might be retiring but want to mentor, so they actually have free time that you could sign up to get marketing advice, maybe to get legal help or whatever that you struggle with. These are some on because my mentor, when I was doing the CD/DVD business, he was the owner for Record Plant, who actually recorded the Beatles, the Jimi Hendrix, Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
But the owner was retiring.
That's
He
awesome.
wants to give back. So I was fortunate enough, we were both in LA, to connect with him, actually learned so much from him. His name is Chris Stone. And, they're actually out there, and a lot of people want to give back, and, they're not finding people who wanted to learn.
Friday, I just interviewed a young lady, Casey Catala. She's a young entrepreneur and doing very well. And you bring up mentorship, and she brought up the story. She bought into a franchise and was smart enough, without advice from others, smart enough to sit there and say, all right, this one is the best franchisee. I am going to reach out to them before I start this process and shorten my learning curve. And they did say, well, we'll do it, but we're not going to do it for free. So they charged, which is fine. But you know what she said? She goes, and it was expensive. And she goes, it was worth every penny because they saved me so much money and so much headache. And I mean, her business, the promotion prior to opening just went off the charts. I think it was like 5 times higher than the average for that franchise. But just the learning curve through the build out of what she had to do for her retail store, saved a lot of time and money there. So a lot of people sit there and they say, oh, I don't want to pay a mentor, or I don't want to pay to learn this stuff. It ends up being, there's a reason they're able to get that amount of money. And it's usually because they can provide 10 times the value that they're charging. So I'm glad you brought that up. So, all right. So that's a wrap with our conversation with Swire Ho. I got to tell you, your experience has been awesome in the insights. And I know the struggles because I've been one when it comes to small business. And I know the stuff that you gave. If people would just take just a few of the things that you shared on this episode, I think it would take them a long way, especially when it comes to referral-based marketing. And you know what else? The referral-based marketing and the client retention tips that you gave, a lot of the ones, if the people go back and listen to this episode again and again, they're going to find out a lot of what you said would cost them nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's it would cost them nothing in actual advertising expense. It's a lot of they got to put in a little time and put a little elbow grease into it, but the dividends would be huge, and it wouldn't be a lot of out-of-pocket expense. So I love that you shared that. I think you gave a very unique perspective on building strong relationships with clients, with partners, with, I think it was power players that you said, or power partners that you said, and different allies in the industries, in all the different associations. So thank you very much. I want to thank Swire for sharing his knowledge and his wisdom with us today. Do me a favor. I want you to, and I'm going to put it up. We've got it scrolling at the bottom of the screen there. Visit him, GarudaPromo.com. If you're watching this, there it is at the bottom, www.garudapromo.com. Also, don't forget, he's got, and we'll put it back up, he's got a podcast you need to visit as well, The Small Business Show. And can they get that anywhere they get on any podcast platform?
Yeah, it's on most major platforms. Yeah, I'm also very active on LinkedIn and really do love networking. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you again for being with us. I really appreciate it. For the audience out there, remember, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure you visit movecrushcount.com. Let me get that up there for everybody. movecrushcount.com, so you can catch up on all our past episodes, and then make sure you subscribe. That way you never miss a future episode. You can also follow us on Instagram or join our Facebook group to stay connected with our community. Don't forget to rate and review us. wherever you get your podcast. It's very important. We grow this show organically, so your support means the world to us. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Move, Crush, Count.